what Jamal Murray provides is a shooter off the dribble and a secondary shot creator. The chemistry in the two-man game he has with Jokic, removing that from the Nuggets, they're out of it. It's sad.
Last night was a really, really sad night in retrospect because I had gotten home. I was at Grizzlies Bulls last night, and I had gotten home, and right before I was going to bed, I saw all the news come out about Jamal Murray. I didn't have that game on, and it happened with I think 10 seconds left in that game.
Like 50 seconds, something like that. It was the final minute. Yeah,
it was less than a minute. Yeah. And Jamal Murray has this really bad, what appears to be at the time, a really bad leg injury, which now, as of recording, Shams Charania has just reported it is, in fact, a worse nightmare scenario. It is a torn ACL that took place in the last minute of that Nuggets Golden State game. And I was reading, I believe, and it was kind of eerie because I had read prior to that I think that was the Nuggets' sixth game since Sunday, since basically a week before. They were playing
They played on Sunday, April 4th, Tuesday, April 6th, Wednesday, April 7th, Friday, April 9th, Sunday, April 11th, Monday, April 12th. That's a lot of games.
That's 6 games in a week.
That's a lot of, unreal. It's sad, man. I mean, in basketball and in sports in general, injuries happen, and it's like no matter whether you're playing on a blacktop court with your buddies. I had a friend rupture his Achilles playing, barely jumped off the ground, just like Murray. Barely. It was a normal action, and the knee just collapsed. And but the thing is like there are enough studies that show that playing as frequent games as the NBA has played this season can contribute to increased risk of injury, especially if a guy is dealing with a sore knee, like Murray was. And it's awful. It's awful, man, because the Jamal Murray this season is the Jamal Murray we saw in the bubble. Dan Devine from The Ringer had a great tweet this morning, comparing the per 36 numbers in the bubble to the per 36 numbers this season. And Murray's development, his leap that he took going back to the bubble, is one of the reasons why the Nuggets have become serious finals threats. But also, with that long run they had with the shortened off season and the compact schedule now, might be one of the reasons why out with a torn ACL, which is not going to just impact Denver this year. I mean, it kind of removes them as finals threats, but it also can impact them next year. You don't know what version of Jamal Murray you'll get in 9, 10, 11 months, however long it takes to get him back. It's awful. And it's awful that it happened in the last minute too of what could have been and should have been a great night.
Yeah, and it's going to be a shame because inevitably that discussion is going to come up, the load in which these guys are being asked to take on, right? Which everybody did this because there's a pot of money that is to be split by the NBA, and so the players have representation in this. It wasn't as if they were just told this is what you have to do. When you are given options and you say here's the amount of money that is at risk if we don't do it this way, what do you want to do? Well, the players have a say in that, and so it isn't just the big bad NBA in this, right? They do not. This is not just a decision they make and then they force the players to do whatever they say. The players had a hand in this, and it's just awful because given the circumstances and because of the TV money that was out there and available, you wanted to be able to pack in 72 games in an amount of time that 72 games just should not be packed into, right? And so then you have something like this happen, and we're going to find out. I mean, inevitably, there's going to be somebody that comes out with this story. I don't know if injuries are actually up this year, but as we go down this stretch run, you just mentioned, that takes Denver out of it. It just does. And how many of these other teams are going to be taken out of it, whatever their ceiling is, because they catch an injury in these last 20, 25 games of the season.
Yeah, and you know what? This is one of the reasons why we're seeing a team like the Lakers be extremely cautious. That's why we're seeing the Brooklyn Nets be extremely cautious. It's not just because like these superstar level talents. It's because of the schedule. It's also because of the schedule here, and they're being overcautious here. And for Denver, you look at their numbers this season, they're outscoring teams by 11 points per 100 possessions with Jokic and Murray on the floor. With just Jokic out there, they're getting outscored by 1.5 points per 100 possessions. So like a dramatic difference. Like Jokic and Murray, the chemistry those two guys have together, I don't think there's anybody else in that team that can make up for it. Like you will see Michael Porter get more touches, and I look forward to seeing what he does with more scoring opportunities. But what Jamal Murray provides is a shooter off the dribble and a secondary shot creator. The chemistry and the two-man game he has with Jokic, removing that from the Nuggets, they're out of it. They're out of it. It's sad. It's awful.
Well,
I hate it.
And you and I talked about this at the trade deadline. This was by virtue of them making the Gordon trade that they don't have depth. They really don't. They have sacrificed some level of depth over the course of the last season and a half, and so they don't have somebody that they can just plug and play. And honestly, like their starting five is just, it is title contender caliber. Their bench is not, but again, they don't have to have that many guys playing off the bench when you get into a playoff run. But what exposes the depth is when somebody goes down, like last night.
You're going to see, Campazzo and Monte Morris get more opportunity and all that. It's just none of them are Jamal Murray.
No,
none of them can come close to being a guy who can drop 50.
Well, and that story of last night's game, unfortunately, becomes this terrible Jamal Murray injury. It would have been Curry's 53, which was, game. It was 48 through three quarters. And, you see, like I said, I remember when you and I were arguing at the very beginning of the year, and we were going through where these teams are going to be in the standings at the end. I said, Curry's going to have to average like 35 a game for this team to have a chance. And I'll be damned. Like, he's not going to average 35 a game, but I swear if he doesn't have huge games, they are just so behind the eight ball in every game. Like, he has to have these just gigantic efforts. And the level of attention he gets anyway. He is... you watch something like that and you go, man, I hope Klay's okay, and I hope they can build around this, because you've still got a couple years here where he is at absolute peak of powers and is certainly best guy on a championship team level player. And that's going to be for a couple more years, but they've got to build around that. They obviously don't have the team right now, and it takes these superhuman efforts for them to be in games.